Now we'll take a more personal look at Canada's prostitution laws. We have two former prostitutes with us with two very different opinions. Shona Stewart runs a home to support women who want to leave prostitution. Shona was against the Supreme Court decision. She joins us from Winnipeg. And Evan Smith is a longtime support worker for prostitutes, specializing in Aboriginal counselling. She's soon to be ordained in the United Church of Canada. Evan supported the Supreme Court decision. Welcome, both of you, to Context. Okay, Evan, explain why you agree with the Supreme Court throwing out the prostitution laws, making it wide open for prostitution in Canada.
Definitely. From my own experience, one of the biggest barriers that I face, and one of the places that I think I felt the most threat of any violence, was actually from law enforcement. So during the decade that I worked, I was constantly in fear of losing my housing, my partner, and my teenage daughter being charged with living off the arrears. It made it very difficult to have safety networks in place. As an outreach worker, I definitely have seen what happens even when Johns are being targeted. Suddenly, people have to drive the prices down, which actually results in more prostitution, because when you're not making enough money to support your living expenses, your housing, etc., you have to work more. So unfortunately, with things like the Nordic model, what ends up happening is that we have to work more. Also, a lot of our sort of higher...
So any regulation is going to make it more difficult for women in this business, you feel?
Definitely.
And it will only further victimize
Exactly.
you. Okay,
exactly.
Shona, in Winnipeg, would you support the Nordic model? You've just heard Evan say she doesn't. Would you support this idea where you prosecute the people who purchase sex, the Swedish regulations?
Well, from my research, I find that that is the best model we have presented out there, and that it's already able to be just adjusted a little bit with our, with our laws in Canada, as well as I have counseled women for 2 years in prostitution, and not one of the men or the women wanted to be there. They said if they had another choice or some way to get out, they would. Now, with that Nordic model, we're going to set up something, as far as I understand, that's going to offer that to women or men who are in prostitution. They want to get out. They saw no other choice. Let's give them a choice. That's what it's offering. And it's also, when I did John schools, I spoke at many John schools, and the John said the only thing that would keep them from going out and doing what they're doing is if they were to be charged heavily. This little slap on the hand that they got in a $500 fine to go to John school, it wasn't enough. So,
Evan, you and I have both studied at theological colleges, but we couldn't be more different on our view of God's view of human flourishing. I just do not agree that anyone can flourish in prostitution, and you don't agree with that. Tell me what I don't get about this.
Well, we're not necessarily on different pages. My interest is solely in allowing women the right to work if they choose, the right to protection if they need it, and the right to exit if they want to.
So what about this argument we heard in the first segment, early victimization? The average age is between 14 and 15. No girl makes a career choice to start prostitution at 14.
For sure. Well, first of all, those statistics are based on studies of Elizabeth Fry, which have been shown to be incorrect, in that the average age is actually 35.
Oh,
Even though
I don't believe that. How old were you when you started?
I was in my 20s.
You were in your 20s. Shona,
yeah.
How old were you when you started? You were in your young 20s, Shona, weren't you?
I was 21.
21, okay.
Yeah. But regardless, when we're talking about children in prostitution under the age of 18, that's a complete different ballgame, because that is child molestation. What I want is a situation where, for instance, when I was a sex worker, I would never go to the police to report an assault.
Okay.
Because of the criminalization around it. So I want a situation set up where we remove the bias towards sex workers, we remove the discrimination, we remove the risks associated with going to the police for the sex workers and for the Johns, so that people can report.
Okay, Shona,
Well, they
you
could
claim...
report with the Nordic model.
Okay, and Shona, you claim, I want to get onto this victimization theory here, but you claim women don't enter the sex trade by choice, that they're all victims. You started Dignity House in Winnipeg to help women leave the sex trade. What sort of help do women need?
When they come out, they need counseling. They need addiction treatment, some of them, most of them.
Okay.
So there's so much that they're going to need when they're coming out,
Okay,
and it takes a long time to do this.
Okay,
You know,
Shona, I want to turn to Evan now here on this question of human flourishing.
Yeah.
Here you are, studying to be a minister. Shona's a minister as well. Help me understand God's view of human flourishing as you see it on this subject.
I think that, we serve a God who has given us bodies that we should honor as sacred. I believe that God wants us to flourish as human beings in control of our lives, able to make our own choices, able to discern if we're in sin, if we're not in sin. And we're a redemption people. So to give people the chance to turn around. And what I see in decriminalization is that ability for women to freely enter and exit the trade. And what I would love to see, I would love to see churches involved in exactly what Shona was saying, counseling, addiction support, all of that. I'd also like to see churches involved in harm reduction so that when women choose to exit the sex trade, they can exit without a criminal record, without disease, and really be granted a fresh start in their next career or whatever they go on to.
Jesus didn't ever leave a woman, a prostituted woman or an adulterous woman alone. He said, now come with me, follow me, and sin no more.
Okay, Evan, Shona, thank you both. We're putting all of these resources on our website. Evan Smith, you're a longtime support worker with prostitutes. Shona Stewart runs a home to support women leaving the sex industry, longtime support worker as well. Now to the studio audience where Sheldon Neal is standing by.
Thank you so much, Lorna. We actually have two audience comments, but first we're going with John Castles, who has counseled sex workers for many years, and he has a comment to say.
Since most of our prostitutes in Canada are being trafficked, are being controlled by pimps, will they be safer in a legal situation?
Okay, Evan, I want to ask you that because you work with them. We don't.
Yeah. My big concern is that in a legalized model, it would look much like stripping in Toronto, where you go to City Hall, you pay, you get a license, you work at a licensed venue.
Okay, Shona, would they be safer in a legal model like this that John is asking about?
You're never safe when you're dealing with people. Doesn't matter whether you're indoors, outdoors, whether it's legal or illegal. You're always going to possibly have a situation where it's going to be dangerous.
And that was the underlying opinion that launched the Supreme Court, each judge saying it is such a dangerous profession. Okay, Sheldon, we've got another question.
That's right. A question right there. Go ahead.
You talked about what it looks like for women who want to exit. I guess I'm not really familiar with what that looks like. And with the possibility of a safe house, would that be, is that something that is in existence even now? Or just wondering.
Evan, is there enough safe house opportunities for women?
No. I
know of 3 in Canada. It is easy
we
to
are
exit.
Living under a government right now which is doing cutbacks to social services, right? Addictions treatment, rehab, homeless shelters. All of those are things that people may need to access to exit. Okay. And so
I've slept at Dignity House, Shona's house in Winnipeg. I love it. You guys have a great, great home that's ready to be there. Okay, it's there's one place, and there's a few others on our website, but there needs to be much more, and the church needs to get involved.
For sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, Sheldon.
Thank you, Lorna. And for those of you at home, it's easy to join the conversation. Here's a question you won't find asked in the nightly news. Do you believe prostitution is morally right or morally wrong? Please send your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter. Be part of the conversation.
Okay, thank you, Sheldon. Well, coming up, early childhood abuse led our next guest to a life of prostitution. We've got a dramatic story. That's next.